Hiori is one of my favourite characters, and I genuinely believe he has one of the highest potentials in the Blue Lock cast. And I believe that Hiori and Sae share a lot of similarities in their characters. Currently, we have 3 known World Gen players of the 11, with the 4th potentially being Chappie, who looks strikingly similar to Xavi Simons from PSG, which is the PXG counterpart in real life. In Barca Munich, we have the ace striker Kaiser, who serves as the role as Isagi's rival, where Hiori will help Isagi in eventually dethroning Kaiser and turning him into the Naked King as prophesized. We also have Don Lorenzo, where I think Hiori will have a large contribution in winning the current Ubers game. On a quick side note, Lorenzo is depicted as a zombie ever since his debut, and if you go back to Hiori's backstory, we observe that he plays video games. In particular, we see him playing a zombie shooter game. We see Hiori interpret his parents in a similar vein as the zombies, as he shoots both. And so I think that Hiori will contribute in a way to defeat Lorenzo, at least once, as he essentially shoots a zombie, aka Lorenzo. And by doing so, skyrockets his salary even when only playing a small portion of the match. But the main World Gen character I want to focus on is Sae, as I believe he and Hiori share a lot of similarities between their characters and their egos. Although their personalities are a bit different, with one being kind and easy to communicate with, while the other being more distant and mean, I believe Hiori will end up learning his ego as a midfielder, as he supports Isagi, like how we see Sae change his ego to be the world's best midfielder, and with Ring being the potential best striker. In the U20 match against Japan, we have one key line by Sendo, where he compares Hiori's pass to Sae's, where it highlights that Hiori's technique in passing is of a similar level to Sae's, which is an insanely high compliment to be compared to a World Gen passer. Hiori and Sae are not only compared in skill, but their panels also share some similarities, as we see him kick, pass and overall his ball control. And we know both are strong left-footed passers with high analytical abilities and football IQ. Both also understand the concept of reflex, as we see Hiori try and teach Isagi in the 3rd selection, and utilize a reflex chemical reaction during the U20 match. Sae is similar, as in the same match we see his reflex chemical reaction with Shido. They both have a lot of emphasis on reflex, while having an extremely similar playstyle, and so I think this is deliberately portrayed in a way to show the similarities between the two characters. It's a fairly common theory already that Hiori will transition into a midfielder instead of a striker. Hiori's main specialties are his passing ability, which is praised by everyone and compared to Sae's, as well as him having high intellect, as we see him have metavision plus high football IQ, and lastly, great dribbling ability. All of his football skills translate incredibly well as a midfielder, in particular as an offensive midfielder like Sae. He is also one of the first players in Blue Lock to acknowledge he can display an ego without having to be a striker, and highly aggressive or mass producing goals. This, coupled with Karasu's comment about Hiori not being born with his heart in front of the goal, makes him transitioning to another role more suited to his talents actually believable. In the Barca Munich match against Ubers, we see Isagi request Hiori to play, and we see that Hiori breaks his chain, which I will probably talk about in another video. Breaking the chain leads him to declare his new ego, which is now to be the one to help Isagi become the king, and an egoist who passes. Contrary to Karasu and the fanbase's thought, he actually took the shot instead of always passing. Even during the U20 match, Hiori tells Karasu that he can do more than just pass. The fact he is willing to score for himself shows he is more than just Isagi's puppet, like Corona, and shows a similar behaviour to Sae, who also takes the opportunity to shoot and not just pass. And so I feel like both characters share similar ego. If we flash back to Sae's past, we see he started off as a striker and easily score. This is our first glimpse of the future genius in action, but what's interesting is that he seems nonchalant. This is similar to Hiori, who never seemed to care about being the best striker. Although Sae has looked indifferent in most panels, there is one interesting page, and that is the one with young Green who runs onto the field and scores from a direct shot, which so happens to be Isagi's signature shooting style too. Sae is mesmerized from his assist to Reen's shot, which will spark his innate egoist passion, not as a striker, but a midfielder, while witnessing Reen's potential as a striker. Hiori is similar in the NEL arc, where Isagi, like Reen, triggers the same emotion Sae felt, and begins his midfielder egoism. After Sae returns, he declares he will be the world's best midfielder, before Reen chucks a hissy fit. A lot of people expect someone in Spain like Leonardo Luna to break Sae's ego as a striker, or Sae failing overseas. And although that despair could be a reason, I think that the real reason is that in a new competitive environment, he got a glimpse of true egoists and awoken his own true ego as someone who passes, and to become the person who will become the world's best midfielder. And I think that the reason Sae got triggered from Reen saying he isn't his brother is because he thinks he failed Reen, which hurts Sae but still believes Reen has what it takes to be the world's best. Although he believes Reen's brother complex hinders him from becoming a true egoist like Isugi. Meanwhile, Hiori was pretty nonchalant until the competitive environment of Blue Lock introduced him to Isugi, who sparked his own midfielder ambition. I want to say that Sae was not born a natural striker, but rather a midfielder, and I believe Hiori is similar. He may have been born and raised to be the best football player, but he was never born with the ambitions to satisfy the true striker mentality, like someone like Isugi. Which comes to my next point about despair. In this series we have had many moments where a character suffers before they further awaken their true egos. We've had Baru in the second selection crash if he passed the ball, and as a result his striker ego flourished. And we've seen both Yukimiya and Kunigami despair before scoring their goals. In the current Ubers match there's an emphasis on despair and how people deal with it, where we see Snuffy's friend Mick end his life. Although Baru is the one Snuffy the story compares, we see how the characters handled despair and grief. In the latest chapter we see Hiori attempt to score and feel his first glimpse of despair, where I think Hiori will further awaken his ego and passion as a future midfielder. By guessing Hiori will transition into a midfielder, how will he fit into the team coming into the PXG match? Well, Corona was the original right fullback and will be healed coming into the PXG match. And we know that Kiora is bound to play, so how will Hiori slot into the team? So far, Bayern Munich has run a consistent 4-4-2 formation in every game so far, and so I think there's a good chance they'll continue this formation coming into the final game. So where should Hiori go? Well, there's only a few remaining positions with the original Bayern Munich members, and if the Naked King prophecy results in Kaiser being the only original player with the other 10 being Blue Lock players, well, we will have 4 potential substitutes. The 2 more fodder characters remaining are Birkenstock and Menza, who play as the centre backs, which Hiori doesn't suit as that position. But the problem is Kiora doesn't suit in that position either, as he is incredibly short and his defending is his worst stat. And although we haven't seen him play, we know his shooting stat is high and seems suited in another position, which means they both may end up replacing Grim and Ness in the future game. Grim has been fairly useless in the last 2 games, and his stats and salary are in plausible territory for another player to overtake him. Heck, even in the Ubers game, he asks Kaiser for the ball and gets blatantly ignored, and so I'm fairly confident he'll be the one replaced in the next match. Personally, I think Yuki takes his spot with Kura as the left fullback, but this could be interchangeable with Yuki remaining in his position and Kura as the left midfielder. Since we see them train together and both their names correspond to swords and blades, I think both will occupy the left side positions. But where will Hiori go then? Well, the only position left is Ness's as the primary attacking midfielder, which so happens to be the same role as Sae. If Hiori gets a super assist with Isugi and they take over Bastard, then Ness has a chance to get subbed out, as Isugi becomes the king of the team. The one issue people will have is the fact Hiori states that he will quit after the match, and therefore won't be like Sae. I personally don't think he will. It's a common trope for a protagonist to convince someone from dropping out, even if Ego did mention it was an option at the beginning of the arc. Don't forget, Snuffy also planned to retire after the NEL arc, but Baru convinces him to continue. And so I think Isugi and Baru will both convince one of their teammates to continue playing after this match. I also don't see a world where Hiori quits playing right before confronting Karasu in PXG, who seem like a huge part of his backstory. I want to see Karasu proud of Hiori for finding something he is passionate about, and I don't think Hiori's story is ending after this match, as he will ignite his newfound love of football. And I expect him to do that by assisting or scoring the next goal in the match. With Isugi's positioning and reminding Hiori of Reflex from earlier, I'm extremely confident that Isugi will form a Reflex x Reflex chemical reaction, just like Shido and Sae from the U20 game. And with that goal by Isugi and Hiori, Bayern Munich will win 3-2 against Ubers, and they'll keep their starting spots for the upcoming PXG match. Overall, I expect them not to quit and to play in the PXG match, becoming the primary offensive midfielder for the main U20 roster. With that being said, thanks for watching, Buddha be praised, and subscribe if you haven't.